Hello, my name is Cecilia, and welcome to this soap making tutorial. In this video, I'll take you through the whole process of making soap using the cold process method. I'll share a very simple soap recipe without any dyes or fragrances to simplify the process as much as possible, so that once you've learned the basics, you can dive deeper into the subject of soap making and transform this simple recipe into the foundation of your own customized soaps. Let's get started.
Preparation is key, so let's make sure we have everything we need before we start. You need gloves, a stick blender, an apron, long sleeves, face mask, a mixing bowl. You'll also need a spatula, pouring jugs, and of course your oils, as well as water and lye. And that's it. Step 1 is going to be making our lye solution. For this recipe, we need 190 grams of water. When you combine lye and water, a chemical reaction occurs that makes the water heat up really quickly. That's why it's important to always put the lye into the water and not the other way around. This recipe calls for 71.39 grams of lye. If the lowest value on your scale is a gram, then round it up to 72. This is okay because we've chosen a superfat discount of 5%. So we can still be sure that all the lye is going to be converted and not be present in the final product. I've chosen 3 types of oils for their different properties. Rapeseed oil for conditioning and a stable lather. Olive oil because it's highly conditioning and ideal for sensitive skin with a smooth silky lather. And coconut oil for its excellent cleansing properties and its rich bubbly lather. Since coconut oil is a solid oil, it needs to be melted. I usually melt mine in the microwave. And now, for the demonstration, I've printed out the recipe from soapcalc.net. 200 grams of rapeseed oil. In the EU, rapeseed oil has a uric acid content of less than 2%. So in the US or Canada, it would be called canola oil. Coconut oil, 200 grams. And 100 grams of olive oil, giving us a total of 500 grams of oils. Also converted to pounds and ounces for those who need that. We're going to use a super fatting discount of 5%. The extra oils remain unsaponified and provide moisturizing properties. This makes the soap gentler and more nourishing to the skin. To keep it simple, this recipe is free from dyes and fragrances. 190 grams of water. With the lye, we have our complicated number of 71.39. If you don't have accurate scales, you can just round it up to 72 for simplicity. Your lye, or sodium hydroxide, needs to be pure. The purer the better, preferably over 99%. I'm gonna go with 72. 19. 41. 64. And 72. Now that we're going to combine lye and water, you need a well-ventilated room. Open windows, a strong fan and a protective mask will go a long way. And remember, you always put the lye with the water, not the other way around. After you've poured in the lye, you need to stir it for a bit, otherwise it might solidify the bottom. Then put the lye to the side away from you to dissolve and cool down. Next step is measuring our oils. And we're going to start with 200 grams of coconut oil. I'm starting with coconut oil because it's solid and it's melting. I'll put that in the microwave. Next, we're measuring up 200 grams of rapeseed oil or canola oil. And now 100 grams of olive oil. Our coconut oil has melted, and now it's time to combine all 3 oils. It's important to make sure that you include all of the oils. This is where a spatula comes in handy. Since saponification doesn't happen without chemistry, it's important to know that any deviations from the recipe will have an impact on the final product. And you might end up with a soap that has other qualities than the ones you desired. Or, in a worst case scenario, not even turn to soap. This is the moment where you would add your dyes and fragrances, if you were to use any. We're not going to do that in this recipe, just to make it as simple as possible. Based on the final product and your specific taste, You can then alter the recipe to include ingredients that provide the properties that you want your soap to have. By now your lye solution should have cooled down a bit, so we're going to measure the temperature of our oils and our lye solution to make sure that they're as close as possible, somewhere in between 38 and 46 degrees Celsius. The oils measure 41.4 degrees Celsius. If you're planning to make soap with different patterns and colors, I advise you to get more than one of these pouring jugs. They are super handy. For this recipe, we don't really need that many. We only need one. The lye solution now measures 41.8 degrees Celsius, which is close enough. You can now go ahead and pour the lye solution into the oils. For best results, the lye solution needs to be distributed evenly in the oils, so make sure that you stir it properly. I'm stirring to begin with a spatula. We're going to stir until we reach something that is called a light trace. You don't want to stir too vigorously because you want to avoid having too many air bubbles in your soap. It doesn't affect the quality of the soap, but it can affect the texture. Here you can see that the mixture is already becoming a little bit thicker. And depending on what oils and additives you choose to use, the time it takes for it to reach trace can vary by quite a lot. I'm going to swap the spatula and use my handheld blender instead. But before I do, I want to pour this oil into my pouring jugs because it gives me more precision due to the narrow spout. By now, you've probably noticed that I have a little bit more oil than you do. This is nothing to be concerned about. You've done everything right. The reason for this is that I have upscaled the recipe using the same proportions just to make a bigger batch for myself. When you insert the blender, make sure it's tilted. If you put it in straight down, you're going to leave a big bubble of air in there. And once you press the button and start blending, those bubbles are going to be all over your mixture. So you want to burp it by tilting it and put it down like this. You definitely want to hold your jug with the other hand while you're blending. The reason I'm not is because my thick gloves wouldn't allow me to hit pause on my camera. So I'm going to get my glove on and blend a bit. This that you can see here is a light trace. And what it means is that when I lift it up and pour it back, it's thick enough to leave a little trace. I'm going to blend my mixture a little bit more to make it a little bit thicker. But that's the trace that you're looking for. You don't want to get it too thick because then the pouring is going to be more difficult and less precise. And since we're not using any different colors, we don't need to worry about any intricate pouring methods. We can just go ahead and pour the mixture straight into the molds. Let's speed this up, shall we? As you can see, I've placed the molds on a metal tray. The molds are soft, and without the tray, they're going to be very hard, if not impossible, to move without spilling. We're going to give it a little shake to even out the surface. Make sure you get all the mixture out using your spatula. The amount I have left is not enough for a whole soap, but that's great. I'm going to use this smaller one as a sample soap, and I'm going to try it already tomorrow. The saponification process takes around 24 hours, but it's not recommended to start using the soap before it's cured for 5 to 6 weeks. I'm going to try it once after 24 hours just to see how it feels and get an indicator of what the end product is going to be like. But I'm not going to use it more than that because there might still be remnants of sodium hydroxide in the soap, which can really dry your hands out. I strongly recommend making a habit of printing these out. If you don't have a printer, write the recipe down and mark the date as well as ingredients so that you can backtrack. If something went wrong, if there's a property with the soap that you're not happy with, you can go back and check so that you know what to correct for the next batch. You may think that you're going to remember, and you might, but in my own experience, after I've made a few batches of soap, it's very tricky to remember which batch is which and what I did when. And if I'm really unlucky and manage to make the perfect soap and I'm super happy with it and I want to remake it and I haven't written it down, I'm gonna have to start improvising again to achieve the same result. Whereas I could just store this in a folder and easily go back to them to further develop my recipe. As for the cleaning job, it's obviously very important to wipe your surfaces because sodium hydroxide is corrosive. But the pouring jugs and the rest of the equipment, I recommend to just leave for 24 hours because by then all the oils will have turned to soap, which is a lot easier to clean than oil. So I'll just leave that there and I'll deal with it tomorrow. And we're back. It's now been 24 hours, or maybe 25, 26. I'm gently pulling at the edges of the mold just to see that they detach a little bit. That's when you know that they're ready to be unmolded. So you can see that the edges of the soap don't stick to the mold. So what you want to do is you want to push from beneath and remove the soap without touching it as much as possible. These are my own soaps for my own personal use, so I'm not wearing any gloves. But you should if you plan to sell them. So once again, press from underneath and straight up. Because the soaps are so fresh that they're softer than the end product is going to be. You don't want to accidentally dent the soap or cause any damage to it. Now it's time for the soaps to cure for about 5 to 6 weeks. I'm going to put them in a well-ventilated area, out of reach from direct sunlight or moisture. During the curing time, a few things happen to the soap. The saponification process completes. You make sure that there's no remnants of sodium hydroxide in the soap, making it safe to use. The excess water evaporates, which helps it harden. The pH levels are stabilized and gradually decreases it over time, making it milder and more skin-friendly. The texture becomes smoother and the lather improves, providing a better washing experience. For commercial soap, presentation is key. You might want to even out the edges and make it look more perfect. You can do something like this, where you cut out the edges. I'm doing it a little bit sloppy right now, so it doesn't really look that much better than it did before. But it can very much improve an uneven soap. And now, after 24 hours, I'm going to try the soap just to see what it feels like. I'm very happy with this lather. It's rich, it's bubbly. This is due to the combination of oils. There's a very smooth and nice feel to the soap bar in my hands, and I'm just loving every bit of it. Now I'm gonna rinse it off to see that it comes off the hands. It's not too oily. Sometimes it might feel like there's still soap left on your hands when you wash, and you don't want that. Now it's been 5 weeks, and I'm trying the soap again. The texture is harder, the lather is wonderful. I'm very happy with how it feels. It's very smooth, and it's an enjoyable experience to wash my hands. And as you can see, I just can't get enough. It washes off perfectly. I don't feel like there's anything left on my hands. And listen to that. Squeaky clean. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and do leave a comment and tell me how it went. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so that you can keep up with my next tutorial.